Hello, this is Matthew Chan.
And I am Tony Centavo.
And welcome to the latest episode of TurnKey Publishing. And today we are going to have a very interesting discussion.
We are.
and you know, I'm probably a little crazy to even be bringing this up, but we are going to put a spotlight on an extreme critical review of my book, TurnKey Publishing. So, and his name is Michael Marcus, and he wrote a scathing review of my book. And not only was it scathing, it was lengthy. I'm not kidding you. This review, and I've shrunk the fonts down and everything, it is 6 pages. Front, back, front, back, front, back. I'm talking, this guy tore me a new one on the surface.
He was mean, man.
You think so? You know, and I just thought, wow, this is unbelievable. This guy took the time. Do you know how long it takes to write something this long of any kind of writing? It must have took him a long, long time. So there was something about my book that really, really triggered him.
Apparently so.
So what'd you think when I forward these links to my friends?
Well, now when you
had to show it to my friends.
When you sent this to me, all right. Now this is my boy right here. Now I want y'all to understand this. And I was reading this thing. We'll keep it clean. I don't know, who does this guy think he is?
He's actually a self-publisher and a blogger. He's actually written a number of books. He's self-published a number of books.
Well, I was trying to figure out where his address was, personally speaking. But, his web address at this point is all we have. But,
and, for those of you, we're going to post a link to that blog post. But even if he deletes it, I've got it captured for everyone to read.
But, what I like about Matthew is that he handles it from the standpoint of, I got this. So, the first thing, and again, I'm sure that y'all can go find this and look at it, but if I can make reference to...
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're going to post a link, and so they can read for themselves. So you can just hit the highlights of what kind of struck with you. And
well, yeah, I mean, now, everybody who's been viewing our episodes know I'm in the process of writing. I read several of Matthew's books. And so I read this, and it says, the interior of this book is ghastly.
Yeah.
Ghastly is in bold. It violates almost every rule about book design that I know of, and probably some that I have not learned yet. And I read this, and I actually physically went, I said, now what about this looks ghastly? And I mean, when somebody says something's ghastly...
You thought I'd do it with crayon, right? With the markers and all that.
And I'm not trying to undercut his emotional spasm that he was having when he was writing this thing, but, I'm thinking, sometimes people embellish stuff to inflame their readers and want to read more. But, I mean, obviously you read this before you sent it to me, so I'm just saying I don't know. Anyway, I didn't like it, and I just think it was kind of out of context. And then he's got like 12 bullet points down here that breaks out, I guess, these rules that he has heard of. Now, I don't think he had any bullet points for the ones he hadn't learned yet.
Well, without belaboring the points, because this is actually there's a lot of minutia here. What he was criticizing all the different design elements of what he felt that, I should have conformed to. Mm-hmm. And so, actually, I do have a blog post that acknowledges it. So if you want to read the reasons why I chose what I do, it's there. But the point is, I violated a lot of design elements, and he did use the word ghastly. And yet, you were telling me, how does this look? I mean...
It looks like a book.
It looks pretty nicely printed in fonts, right?
Nothing struck me as ghastly.
Yeah, but when you use such strong words, that was one take. Okay, so he thought I had an ugly book.
Okay. Like telling somebody they have an ugly baby, Okay.
Well, there are such things as ugly babies, so.
But you don't tell people that their baby's ugly.
It's okay. It's a book review. You're allowed to say that.
All right.
So what else jumped out at you?
Okay, another thing here. In TurnKey Publishing, the business side comes first and the art form is second. His comment is, hey Matthew, did you ever think that maybe it's a bad business move to publish bad books? I mean, that comment to me was taken out of context because this writing is art. I mean, even if you're doing business writing, you're sharing your point of view of things, and in your approach to writing, you take the pragmatic approaches. You want to turn out multiple titles.
And I want to make sure there's some tangible benefits,
and to
make it profitable. That's why, and people forget that.
And this is not just something you're doing to turn in for a homework assignment. This is not something,
and it's not a hobby
that you're doing for a hobby.
Right.
Now, having read your book, and I presume that there is some business benefit, because if you bought a copy of it, then hey. But the other side of this is that again, I'm not saying that he doesn't have some foundation for his perspective. But the spirit with which his comment was made, I think, takes out of context the intention that you had when you wrote it as part of TurnKey Publishing.
Well, Tony, I want to let you know and everybody know that when I wrote that sentence, I knew it was going to raise people's hairs, because people have long said, especially in traditional publishing, oh, you got to do it just right, and it's got to be just so. There's this elitist sort of attitude, and you got to have this high quality product and all. I mean, they make it so complicated. It really scares a lot of mainstream people away.
Okay.
And I said, look, okay, I obviously have figured out a publishing system, but I don't agree with some of these paradigms. It doesn't mean that you can't follow them. I just don't agree with it, and I'm not going to be hinged by it. And as you say, I'm pragmatic, and I kind of knew what my benefits were going to be. Number one, I wanted the author title. Number two, I wanted to write multiple titles. I wanted to do it quickly, and they had the cash flow.
Makes business sense, right?
It makes business sense, but it's very contrarian to a lot of them, because they spend lots of money of making on the art form, what I call the art form.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the standpoint that we've all heard of McDonald's, and we would all agree that McDonald's does not have the best hamburgers.
No, not by far.
But all of us would love to own a McDonald's franchise because it makes money. It's a duplicatable business system. It has its shortcomings, but it plays very heavily toward its strengths. And that, I think, was the essence of where you were going, acknowledging, as you said, the shortcomings, the non-traditional aspects. But ladies and gentlemen, the strengths are that my friend Matthew here is going against the grain, and I think this guy got a splinter trying to follow him. So anyway, that was another of the comments that. Well, what are some of the things that he said that you took particular interest in?
Well,
say objection to. But,
yeah, obviously, I mean, I read it from head to toe a couple of times and tried to take it in. Some of it he did have merits. For example, he brought up a number of points where he wrote this blog review in 2011. Well, I wrote this book back in late 2008. Mm-hmm. And I remember frantically, even at the very, very end, as we were going in 2009, trying to slide in some last-minute information.
Right.
Because in the 6 months to the year that I was writing, the industry had already changed, and I had changed, even in the course of writing. See, that's one of the things I was talking about the snapshot effect, in another episode.
Yes.
Where if you're in a fast-moving industry, what do? I mean, you can never really be current. So, and I think this review is a reflection of that. The fact that 3 years had gone by, so he's cracking on it. So, if he had actually bothered to think, yes, the copyright is 2009, but most of the time there's a number of months that's involved between the initial concept and the writing before it's released.
Gets published, right? Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, when I chose the word turnkey publishing, or just using turnkey as in turnkey investing, they were part of a brand name. Okay. So some people are really taking it literally.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say a turnkey, I usually mean a system. But some of these people, when they think about turnkey, especially him, he's, I'm kind of wanting to think, look, turnkey does not mean brainless. Okay, even McDonald's, okay, as they're a well-known franchise and they've got all the systems down.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, it requires management. There is some intelligence that has to go behind McDonald's to make any one of those restaurants work. You can't have that restaurant run entirely by teenagers.
Mm.
There's generally at least one or two managers that have
somewhere on the scene.
Exactly. So anyway, that was one of the things. Turnkey does not mean brainless.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Now there was a pretty strong comment. He said something about death before dishonor, and really what he took objection to is, I expect that as time passes, the need for proper English will continue to lessen. This is bad news for proper English writers and editors. They may have to adjust themselves to writing and editing at a lower level. So the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of professional proofreaders and editors. And a lot of them are good at their jobs, and they can make your work much better. And I think what's this guy's name? Michael Marcus, he really believes that you've got to do the work. That's his slant. But his saying is, it's better to die here before dishonoring yourself.
Before failing to conjugate the verbs.
Well, I write in a very conversational form, and as you pointed out in my book, I write very similarly to how I speak, both in tone. Now, I would like to think my grammar is a little bit better in the writing form, but it's still my tone. And that was a choice I made.
But that's part of the art form. I mean, being that there's not only one book out there, if having read multiple of your books, I encourage everybody to check these out. They all sound consistent, no matter what the topics are, the titles are. They have his intellectual fingerprint, so to speak, in terms of style. And I associate that with style. Now, if there were a bunch of things that were just grammatically totally screwed up consistently throughout the book, it would make you kind of cringe. But I'm not quite sure what his level of expectation. Now, maybe it could be with the fact that you're saying that writing will become more conversational as people pursue this on a more of a turnkey approach. At least that takes some of the level of resolve out of it, so to speak, in terms of trying to get it finessed to the
point. What I'm trying to do is, a lot of people think they have to be English majors, and I'm trying to take that notion out. I mean, the way we communicate nowadays, through Twitter and Facebook, we have to communicate our thoughts like within a sentence or two.
Yes.
And there's so many abbreviations, it's like crazy. Now, am I endorsing that you have to subscribe to that kind of craziness on social media and put it into book publishing? No. But the fact of the matter is, with text messaging, instant messaging, social media, it has sort of dumbed down the writing. So my belief is that your books, anybody that publishes a book, it needs to be more conversational and less textbooks. Do you know of any textbooks that are runaway bestsellers?
No. And I guess we can tell Mr. Marcus, you weren't writing Shakespeare either. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, another one here that I highlighted is, I'll read your comment. Another benefit of having your books listed on Amazon is that Amazon products list automatically rank high in search results on all the major search engines, and he said no, they don't. Now, to the extent that I'm sure most people are familiar with Amazon, what exactly, I think there was a strategy that you applied to your titling and stuff like that Michael Marcus didn't quite get in terms of taking your statement very broadly. I think you were speaking in somewhat more specific terms.
Well, if I were to rewrite that sentence again, I probably would slightly modify it. I will give him where credit is due. But in my experience, because I had done the homework of titling and doing key search words and all that, way in advance, it was an automatic once it happened and hit.
But you made the comment in your book that you want to seek to do those kinds of things in terms of titling your book and that kind of stuff.
Well, yes, but at least I don't remember the exact sentence which way he's pulling it from. But if you do your homework on the keywords and on the titling and the subtitling, you will get a positive response on the Google search engines. Now, on Amazon, it's sort of I kind of view it as a subset.
Right.
Because a lot of Amazon's listings ultimately show up in Google very, very prominently. But if you can make your books achieve prominence without Amazon's help, that's even better. And so anyway, I guess to make a long story short, he disagrees, and I would probably I would add a caveat is if you don't do the work in advance, then he would be technically right.
Yeah, I mean, technically he may be right. I was just addressing.
Yeah.
He took that and it didn't address the entire context of what you just articulated. So I guess a lesson to the viewers is, don't just. I mean, from the standpoint, most people now look for things on the internet. Mm-hmm. If they're looking for your title or your content, actually, embed the keywords that are going to help you to be closer to the top of the list as opposed to wherever you might fall. Mm-hmm. There was some science in your making that statement. And just one other thing I want to bring up. No, I'm not going to read that one. It's not. Well, we'll put a Matthew's promotional bleep on Amazon says, learn the secrets of independent publishing that traditional publishers don't want you to know. And his response is, no secrets are revealed in the book, and traditional publishers don't care if you read the book. That was just me.
Actually, it depends. Again, it depends on the perspective that you look at. Okay, you got to remember this was back in 2008. Of course, there's a little bit of artistic license when you're trying to promote a book. However, having said that, I definitely can acknowledge this position. Traditional publishers for many, many years have totally dismissed self-publishers and little independent publishers. But I promise you, they're not doing that now. I promise you. Mm-hmm. Because there's more and more bigger names, and there's more and more people publishing books than there ever was before.
Right.
Okay? And there's a lot of people sidestepping these traditional publishers. Okay? They may not have cared before. They're caring more and more about it now. All right? And as we make this video in April 2011, Borders Bookstore has gone into bankruptcy. So we have yet another chain that is hurting financially. So
that's right.
The chain bookstores are hurting. So that hurts one of their distribution channels. So what I would say is that because traditional publishers are really, I think they have brainwashed the general public at large of what publishing should be. They want everyone to follow those rules. And as we had talked about before, I'm all about empowering the individual. If you want to take it out to market, you can. Now, again, there are sacrifices you have to make. This is an individual call. And for me, I have outlined what I believe things that are not important and those things that are important. But in his views, he uses some pretty strong words as in BS. Now, there's another thing that he was kind of picking on and that I thought that it kind of shows where, how people can look at the same topic with such different eyes. And one of them is that I believe every publisher and author should get involved to some degree of product fulfillment. And the reason why I say that, because most publishers are small, starting out.
Yes.
It's not like they're not selling like hundreds and thousands of books a month. Okay? We're not talking about that. Most of the time, when you're an unknown, you are starting out very, very small. And I believe that by you fulfilling some of the orders, you get a pulse from where the readership is coming from,
right,
and so forth.
Okay.
And I think that it's that intangible element that helps give you the edge. Now, one day, if you're like selling masses and masses of books, I definitely get that. You don't want to be stuck all day long, packing books and so forth.
Right. Well, you're saying that your comment in that regard relates to being close enough to ground truth to where you can get some market intelligence from
that's right.
being engaged in the process.
I like to, I know this in some ways this kind of keeps me small, but I'd like to keep a pulse with my readership and my customers. And for me to delegate most things, I kind of want to have a clue of what's going on so that I don't get snowed. So,
makes sense, yeah.
And so one of his arguments here is that he hates it, and I know we're talking about trivia, but like I said, there is actually a very big ripple effect if you don't pay attention to it. Like, for example, he hates the notion that I talk about bubble envelopes. Okay, and the bubble envelopes are basically the manila envelopes are with bubble padding. And the reason why we're talking about something so trivial is actually there is a very real financial cost.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do some fulfillment. So he's talking about the priority mail and the boxes, all that. Yes, you can do that, except that your shipping will probably cost $8 versus like $3. So when you're selling like a $15, $20 book, I promise you, people are not going to like, being charged $7 or $8 for shipping. And even if you're willing to stomach it, why should you? I mean, that's stupid.
I mean, that goes back to your comment about the business side
exactly.
of publishing. And one other thing, I just noticed this. It said Matthew's picture is on back and on the About the Author page, and at least 4 pictures are elsewhere in the book. He says, I have a big ego, but not that big. Hey, Matthew, one is enough. What's the problem with your pictures?
Well, I think there was a page.
He's pretty. I mean,
actually, again, taking that out of context, it's kind of a funny thing. There was actually a
taking
page.
homage on everything.
Well, there was one page that I would discuss the importance of using photos. Now, the people in the realtor industry are notorious for using 10-year-old photos. I mean, a lot of people are really very, very lazy when it comes to their photos.
Right.
And so it's not that, I think people want to know what an author truly looks like currently. They don't necessarily want to know what the author looked like 10 years ago.
So your high school graduation photo.
And so I was, without disparaging anybody, I figured I'd pick on myself. I just laid out 3 different photos on one page to say, hey, look, I've changed over these 3 years. I mean, there is an evolution, right? So that's why I think every 2 or 3 years you need to have kind of update your professional photo. But anyway, he really got upset with that. Okay, there you go.
All right, Matthew's website says there is a need for more publishers and authors. Michael Marcus's comment, that's probably not true. And even if it is true, maybe Matthew should not be one of them. I don't like this guy. But anyway, what do you think about his comment?
I don't really take it so personally, but
that was personal.
It is sort of personal, but I don't know. It's just this whole review was so outrageous.
It's kind of like boxing. Okay, we don't really not like each other. We're just going to knock each other's brains out for 15 rounds. Go ahead.
He comes from an elitist attitude. He comes from old school. Okay, and he feels just like the traditional publishing industry. There's too many books out there. Okay,
but
and they hate it.
He's a publisher.
Well, but he feels that there should be some judgment. So if it was left up to him, I would not be engaging in the publishing industry. And
nor should you be encouraging people to publish. I mean,
I don't know. I'm not going to take him out of context. All I'm saying is that he feels that I should not have gotten into the business. Well, it's a good thing I didn't get into the business. I mean, I didn't ask his permission.
Yeah.
I am in the business. I am sharing my ideas. Not only have a book, I have a show. So, what can I tell you? And anyhow, without belaboring the point, I do encourage you to read Michael Marcus's review of my book. And put on your thinking hat. Why would somebody who has such a track record himself, of writing books, write something so scathing about an alternative publishing approach? Think about it.
Well, do you want a...
Go ahead.
I'm thinking maybe he feels it is his righteous calling to police the industry or something like that. But at the same time, and I don't know, I haven't read or seen any of his books to see, okay, how do yours look compared to his, Matthew's. But one of the things I said about Matthew, and I'll come back to Mr. Marcus, is that he has democratized, you're about, freeing the pigeons, so to speak. You want people to engage.
To whatever degree I can do.
Right. And from the standpoint, you take liberty with some of these staunch, very pragmatic rules that when it comes down to what is this about, forget that this is a book about publishing, but it's about sharing ideas, thoughts, and it's about communicating. So
and make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, and to the extent that, okay, if you're going to publish as a viewer, you got to look at it as a business. Now, I don't know anybody else who has talked to me, or I've not seen it, not that I've looked for it, but I know that you're watching this because fundamentally, if you're doing it for the purposes of generating a revenue stream that is profitable, then you got to take some of these things that Matthew is sharing, take away some of the fat, take away some of the finesse, and then start somewhere. So you got certain elements of speed, you got certain elements of practicality, and you got certain elements of making it a duplicatable process. That kind of takes me back to McDonald's.
Yeah.
They're the best known, most loved, one of the most profitable businesses in the world, but they don't have the best product.
Certainly not. I think most people would be in agreement on that.
Yeah. So, what are you after?
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, as we wind up this,
Michael Marcus, we want you, buddy.
you know, I think he's well intentioned. I've read his blogs, you know, blog entries, and he has his own point of view, and in many ways he did me a favor. I mean, you know, he wants to warn everybody off of this, and he also says that you know, not all publicity is good publicity. In this particular case, he actually did me a service. He didn't just simply say it was a bad book. I mean, he went into such elaborate detail, which really is so out there. It actually helped me build a case against it, if that makes any sense. That's why I've decided, gosh, you know, I mean, there's no point in keeping a secret. I actually share it with my friends, you know,
yeah,
and I've made it wrote many blog posts about it. So I don't know. It'll just be interesting. And now I've even got an episode out of this.
And the good thing is you bought one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this latest episode of TurnKey Publishing, and stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you.
See you next time.